Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Success Life Live. My name is Eric Reed. I am the host, and today is Friday, and I'm down here fiddling, just making sure we've got live and up and moving. So today is Fun Friend Friday with Bob Kittridge, and he should be jumping here in the room in just a minute. I want to make sure that we're live and everything is going. So do me a favor, hit the like, hit the share, hit the good morning, hit the button. Want to make sure that we are active and live. I think there we go. Good job. Thank you, Toomey, for jumping in and letting me know that life is happening. Felt like it was taking a moment for Facebook to wake up and warm up. And, you know, it's Friday. It's been kind of a weird, wonky week. So good morning, Shirley. Good morning, Miss Gail. Gail in the house doing the thing. I don't feel bad. I talked to Bob about 45 minutes ago and he was trying to get his coffee thing going too. So good morning to me. I think I saw a bunch of other people bumping in. So I want to do a quick explanation. So today is Success Life Live. It is Fun Friend Friday. We share the screen or bring in a guest. There's Bob. He's hanging out in the green room over there, wherever the green room is today. They keep moving it around. Good morning, Miss Melanie. So somebody was asking me, why do you use Facebook Live as opposed to Zoom or Be Live TV or some of those other interface or upper lower? So here, let me break. So this used to be an IT brain, used to run internets and networks and design networks internationally. So let me explain it this way, and maybe it'll help you if you're thinking of building a business around social media and building social media and Facebook into it. So let's assume you own a restaurant. You got this really nice restaurant. And obviously as the restaurant owner, every time somebody comes in to eat at your restaurant, you get paid a little bit of money. And so you build this restaurant, you got this vision, you've got all of the things, you've met with vendors and providers and wait staff and management staff, and you built this restaurant, you open the door, and the first day you open it, everybody walks in with McDonald's bags, sits down at your table and starts eating their McDonald's. How long are you going to stay in business? How long are you going to honor that behavior? It's kind of the same thing with Facebook. When they created this thing called Facebook, they wanted as much attention, as much focus on them, their menu, their providers, their wait staff, all of that. And so when you use a tool like Be Live or Zoom and you're doing it over here and then you fling it to Facebook, Facebook's that's like bringing in your own McDonald's when we've just prepared this really stellar restaurant and all of this food is in the kitchen waiting for you to buy it and pay for it. So I know you're oh, who cares? It works out easier. If you're building a business around social media, you need to understand what social media is about. And it's about ranking. It's about getting noticed. It's about becoming sort of a kindred spirit with the platform. If you do one Facebook Live through Zoom, it's probably not going to make a big difference. But I'm on number 300-ish. I don't know. So all of those little ads, all of those little extra Facebook juice that I get going, all of the times that I'm using Facebook solely and intentionally, Facebook's he's a loyal customer. When Eric comes in next time, sit him at the good table. Move him towards the chef's table. Give him the table with the view. Make sure that his stuff gets seen. Because every time he comes in here, he buys from our menu. He tips our waiter staff, really, blah, blah, blah. You get the analogy. So that's why when I do Facebook Lives and Fun Friend Fridays and author talks, I try and stay within the social media that I'm working with. So if I'm over on Instagram, same idea, Pinterest, LinkedIn, etc., stay where you're at. Honor the platform, honor the business owner, honor Mark Zuckerberg, so to speak, and stay within it. If you're doing a weekly or a daily testimonial, Facebook Live, inspirational moment, and you're recording it and lifting it into Facebook, negative points. If you're recording it on Zoom and flinging it to Facebook, if you're using Be Live or other mediums and then flinging it, it's like bringing the McDonald's lunch or SAC Happy Meal box, there we go, the McDonald's Happy Meal box into a 5-star restaurant. They're not going to let you sit down and take up space for very long. So try and stay within it. And so that's why, to answer the question, why do we do it only on Facebook Live? Because I'm trying to honor Mark Zuckerberg and hopefully he'll honor me back. All right, so with all that said, let me go find our guest, Bob. I think he is in the room. I just saw him. Bob, connect now. Join me now. like me now button. In the meantime, good morning, Sonia. Good morning, John. Good morning, Melanie. I saw a bunch of other people jump in, so take a moment to say good morning to my friend Bob, because there he is.
Morning. Hey. Hey.
And the other reason Bob looks like he's got like the alien headphones is because sometimes Facebook has like a 3-second delay, and when you do the side by sides, they get the echo on their side and it kind of becomes distracting. So good morning, Mr. Bob. How'd you like our Facebook Live lesson?
You know, that was the interesting part about that is you're right on exactly where I'm at right now, starting to move forward with some things. So that was perfect for this morning. So I very much appreciate, because I use Zoom and some of those other things to do. And as we move forward, you've definitely now got my interest peaked in learning more about how to just do it native. So good job.
You know, I'm nothing against the Zoom platform, nothing against people that are doing that. I'm not saying don't. I'm saying just understand the tools that you have and how to master them at another level.
Well, and Eric, isn't that what it's all about, is awareness and understanding, right? I mean, that's what, I mean, you and I talk about that all the time, and that's just another level of I had no clue. And trust me, I have that a lot, right? I figure out I have no clue about a lot of things.
So if anybody's printing T-shirts today, make 2 of them. I have no clue. I have no clue. 2 as in also.
Yep, that's a good T-shirt.
Bob, one to me. I am so glad you took time out of your busy early morning to jump in and join us. You have been with JMT as a founding member, correct?
That's correct. We came in March of 2011 on the first call.
My kids, I sort of think about what age my kids were, and I compare that to the John Maxwell team now. And you have been in the speaking and coaching and training and the development mud pile, so to speak, for quite a while. You're actually going through a new branding. I love the logo. Love the logo. I didn't see it get up behind you, but that's different. And I know that's based on where you're at this morning. Kittridge Connect, and it has sort of like a little thing connecting. Talk about, I want to go into overcoming obstacles because that's really our topic for today, but I want to talk about the mind of building the brand, not the building the business, but why the brand, words, and what it means to you. Because I always love, it's almost like an author talk.
Wow. Yeah. Hey, Greg. So 2011, I guess, right? When we joined the John Maxwell team, we did not join the John Maxwell team to build a business. That's the interesting part about it, is we already had a couple. We worked in the firefighting space. I traveled internationally teaching emergency management. We joined the John Maxwell team for the mentoring, for the personal growth. That was and when we went to the first international, well, back then we just called it the live event, right?
10 people in a coffee shop.
Yeah, it was right. Well, you know, that first session was 1,000 people, and they couldn't get them in so they had to split it into 2 sessions of 500. So if you think about doing an IMC and doing it twice in 1 week, that's what we did back then. But I'll tell you, I left there with a different feeling. And I think the different feeling I understood, and I'm going to answer your question, but that is that what I was doing was training skills in the fire world. And I really realized that pretty much anybody can do that. Right. I mean, you know, Paul talks about your pay is the easy part of replacing you is part of what you're worth. And I figured if I quit the next day, they'd have somebody else in there teaching the exact same thing, right? They hand me a book, they hand me a PowerPoint deck and say, go forth. And I started to really dig into the coaching curriculum because I figured out that who I was really raising the awareness for people in the world of their greatness. That's my purpose. So we sat down and as we look at people in the John Maxwell team, that's one of the biggest, that and pricing is probably 2 of the biggest conversations is what do I name my company? Do I call it Bob Kittridge? You know, am I a coach? Am I a consultant? Am I, all this kind of stuff. And we sat down with a branding gal here locally and went through one of her workshops, and the deal was start listing the words that associate to what you do or the impact you make. And it kept coming back, that word connection kept coming up in both Nancy and I's kind of process through. And then we started to look at it, because it's not just me, it's not just her, it's us. And then we connect you to your purpose, we connect you to your vision, so that word connection. So that piece of it stuck. And we set out to really start to build a company around that. Unfortunately, we were not really good at building a brand. I mean, that's, there's a piece of this. There's brand and there's branding, right? And you market your branding. You are your brand. And that's the piece that we struggled with, is who are we as far as that as a company? And so in October, I think it was October, we had an event here. And there was a local PR company, actually a national PR company, had just opened an office, and they were sponsoring this networking event, and they were giving away a complete rebranding for a small business. They're trying to break in, and these guys work with Coke and Pepsi and Adidas and Nike, and I mean, like, big, but they want to start to work in the entrepreneur small business world to help that brand, right? Establishing your brand. So Nancy put in a deal on they were giving this away, and you had to enter. And I'm like, my luck at winning something is usually zero, right? I mean, up until now, right? I looked around the room and thought, and she goes, well, I'm going to do it. I'm like, awesome. And I think she filled out the front of the card, the back of the card. I think she stapled a second card to it, right? I mean, she really, and a few weeks later, we got a call that we were like in the top 6, and they were reviewing websites, and man, ours needed some help. I mean, bad, right? I mean, that side. So we got the call that we were chosen, and that was in October, and we've worked with them. We worked with them for 3 months. And our first meeting, when we sat down, the thing she asked us is, what is this? What are you attached to in your brand? I said, nothing. I figured, why? If I'm going to turn the keys over to somebody, the experts, to help me move forward. And I told her the only thing we're really attached to is the name, because that's our company, that's our corporation. But I even told her, if you come up with something different, right, we're good. We were open to that. So working with this company for over 3 months, and branding and logos and colors, and, they handed us in a complete marketing package and I went back and looked at our website, and, when I designed a landing page, it was whatever font was good for me that day and whatever color was, it's like, geez, no wonder. And the second question they asked us as we were sitting there, she says, I hate to ask this, but what is it you do? And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, because I can't tell. Thus your brand, right? I mean, your brand is the impact you make and who you are. So now with Kittridge Connection, and the funny part about it is when they came up with that logo, Nancy's been playing with designs in her head for months and has never been able to get it. And they nailed it. They just nailed it. It's kind of if you look at it, the principle is, it's almost kind of like a puzzle piece, connecting that
kind of puzzling.
Exactly.
So, and what I want to say is, we've got a lot of people in the space, and there's a lot of sharing going on. That was a hint, you guys.
I see that. Yeah. Oh, am I supposed to share this?
Yeah.
Right.
I have always loved branding and marketing and product development and ideas. I've done it for several companies. I've done it for some fellow JMTers in a way of like, okay, so what am I about? Sometimes, and I'm going to say this, and this isn't personal plug or anything, sometimes you need to get an outside third person to like hear it. I'm a very intuitive. Some people sometimes joke and say it's almost like you're a psychic, because that's everything I was thinking, but you said it. And it's like, yeah, because you have been so caught up in hearing it in your head and worrying if it's like all of the personal fears and images. And because it's like when somebody asks you to write your introduction, it's like almost the hardest thing to do, because you don't want to overblow yourself, and it's the same thing with branding and marketing and getting the idea of who you are and what your voice is. Now, I'm also putting in one of those stop moments. You do not need to have all that to make money, because you made money with the old stuff, didn't you?
And that's, yes. And that's the, we see so many people get stuck because they don't have a, well, I can't go out yet because I don't have a business card, or I don't have, you know, I don't have something to put on my website, or I don't have, here's the deal. The brand is you. I mean, that's what I've really started to understand with this is, you know, 7 years into this, we're now, and we'll talk a little bit about overcoming obstacles in my, you know, 3 year ago obstacle I ran into. But what I'm starting to get calls now is, hey, Bob, we need to talk. Your name keeps coming up. So in circles of, you know, is when we did a survey of somebody that could do this, and your name seems to be coming up a lot. They didn't say my website seems to be hitting. They didn't say, right, is what's coming up is me. And that's the brand now, is who I am and what I'm doing, not the website, not Kittridge Connection, not it's who you're being.
And that
is
comes
your
really
brand.
into, now that you know the voice that you're selling, and I put that selling in quotation, it's easier for you to stay in connection. I've worked with politicians, and I like, that's all I say that only because when I work with somebody running for a political office, it's often about what is the one message. Because, and I'll say, I use it as an example. If somebody says, what are you going to do about schools? That's a wonderful question. And as soon as we get the expansion on the airport, we'll be able to afford more money in our tax base to fund schools. What are you going to do about the roads? As soon as we get the airport expansion completed, we'll be able to get better. What are you going to do about clean water? The airport expansion will bring, and they know that everything that they say off that one speaking point, that speaking point becomes the brand, but they roll it around to everything people are interested in. And I'm going to do one. So the other day I was working with somebody and I was reading, I'm trying not to laugh. Her brand, her logo, whatever you want to call it, is the Udala of your thoughts. I know. I was like, I think I know what word she said, but I need to look it up. So it's that birthing assistant that women have during childbirth that takes care of their emotional needs and makes sure that the process goes along smoothly and comfortably. And so her whole thing was, I am the Udala. I don't know how to pronounce it because I'm probably never going to hire one. I am the Udala of your dreams. And I'm like, first, the word I don't understand. Second, now we're just down to women. Now we're down to pregnant women. Now we're down to pregnant women in their 9th month. Doula. There you go. Thank you, John.
Doula. There we go. John.
I'm not going to say anything,
part is John
John
comes up with that, right?
I am the doula of your dreams. And I was like, I have no idea what you mean. Like, I know what you mean, like, syntactically. But I don't understand how I'm afraid to even like touch you with that word, because I just see all the things that happen in the delivery room. And she's like, no, I love to help people birth their dreams. I'm like, okay, let's, and after a 45-minute consultation, we started to but she was so committed to that word. She believed in that word. She believed in that image, blah, blah, blah. Like, she would not let it go. And that's where a good branding expert or a marketing expert or even just a thinking partner sometimes comes in and goes, you realize that one, most people don't know how to pronounce it. Two, you just lost 50% of the men or 50% of the population. Then you've lost anybody that's a woman that either pre-pregnancy or post-pregnant. Like, how big of a market do you want to have? I get niching, but she had and so in the idea of, there's one thing about niching who I can serve best, but there's another thing about casting the net and then putting fish back in the ocean. When you create your brand, when you create your marketing, when you create your voice, when you create all that, sometimes it's a little bit bigger net than you're probably best serving at, because you need to get everybody in, and then you get to say, you know what, I'd love to work with you, Bob. However, I think the ideal person right now for you and your business and career is over here. So I like the new image. That whole 15 minutes was about trying to tell you how much I like the new direction you're going.
Well, and it's, I get asked that a lot now. Who's your ideal client? That normal, who's your ideal client? Who's your, right? And one of my answers to that is someone who's stuck at the current level of success. So whether that's an organization, hey, Dave, thank you, buddy. Whether that's an organization, whether that's a person, and what we're about is people-focused growth. Because if you look at, and there was an article this morning I was reading while I was waiting to get on here on how automation is starting to take over so much stuff. And you know, the point of the, and I got to go back and read it because there was really some good stuff. But if you can be replaced by a machine, right? But if you're more creative, I'm looking at Diane Dick. Trying to replace Diane with a machine would be impossible, right? I mean,
they're just trying to clone
creativity. Her creativity, her amazingness. I mean, I'll shoot her a message and say, look, I got a group and I am just stuck on what kind of an exercise to do with this group. And she'll like, boom, here you go. And you're like, wow, okay. So that branding piece of it, I think also has to be, where's that creativity in it, but people understand it, right? And I figured out the piece of being stuck in your current level of success goes back to some of my work with Paul Sheely when he talks about, you know, tell me where you're at from a 1 to 10, and somebody goes, well, a 4, and you go, well, great, why so high? And people are like, what do you mean, why so high? Because it allows us the access to resources that we got to a 4. So if I already think you're successful versus failure, it allows me to work with you as a coach or to build that. So that brand we're building on is that person that's stuck at the current level of success, and then being able to go forward.
And it's a big thing, because when you begin coaching, oftentimes people come to you from that want lack space. And it's like, wait a minute, we need to take an inventory and segue. This is how we segue on TV. Maybe you're just in front of an obstacle that you haven't developed the tools and resources to get over, get around, or get through. But clearly there's a sort of a gospel song that goes, he hasn't brought you this far to leave you alone. That it's almost like you haven't achieved this much success just to get to this point. And so obstacles, you had a major obstacle 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago?
So May of 2016.
Okay. Fill the rest of the world in that didn't get to go.
So almost 3. Well, I'll tell you, we were at a turning point in our business. We were starting to really get some traction. Starting to get right, and I got up at about 2 a.m. in the morning to what I call take care of a nightly duty that us older gentlemen usually have to do a couple times in the night, right? We're all friends here, right? So we can share that. And and so went to get up, stood up, fell flat on the floor. I mean, it was almost like kind of like when you sleep on your arm and and then you get up and your arm just kind of, you can't do anything with it. Well, that was my legs. I mean, I couldn't stand. I couldn't carry weight on them. Made the way into the bathroom, got back out. Nancy by that time had woke up because I'd knocked everything off the dresser and the nightstand trying to get to the bathroom. And as I sat on the edge of the bed, I felt fine. I mean, I absolutely had no pain, had nothing. And no signs. I mean, nothing except I couldn't stand. So, of course, her inclination was 911. 30 years in the fire service, mine says no way, right? You know what I'm saying? It was right that 2 a.m. Right? I know what happens when you call 911 at 2 a.m. in the morning, right? So she drove me to the hospital, and as I laid there and everything going on, I heard the nurse say, "Oh, this could be the problem." And when you're laying there and going, "What?" Right? And I don't remember much after that because they pushed some drugs to lower my blood pressure. It was at 268 over 162, somewhere in there. I mean, it was
talk about
right.
Six-figure number.
So oh man, I'm telling you, right? And the next morning, later on that morning, the doctor and the nurse, of course, telling me everything that I had a stroke and that it was caused by. And I remember the nurse asking me, were you watching your blood pressure? And I said, absolutely, I was. I took it and I was watching it climb, right? But it was the kind of things, if you ignore it long enough, it'll go away, right? That did, right? And early in my John Maxwell career, I remember Paul Martinelli using the phrase, and he still does, is that God, yeah, Gail, thank you, right? Is that, you know, God will guide you by a feather or 2x4. He tickled me with a feather throughout, weight gain, all the stuff and everything else. And it was like, okay, smack, right? Um, and as I laid there listening to them, all I heard was wow, 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 because I saw my future disappearing. I mean, I saw my future as a coach, a speaker, as you know, in the fire service. I knew what happened to people that had strokes, right? And to top it off, as I turned on the TV, there was actually a thing called the Stroke Channel. I'm serious.
I know.
And as I'm laying there watching, yeah, I know, but well, it was to me. Oh my God. And again, how a stroke victim, you're not going to be able to do this. And a stroke victim, you're not in a stroke. And I'm thinking, holy, and I shut that. If I could have thrown the remote across the room, but it was tied to the, right. It was tied to the damn bed. Right. And I'll tell you, I made a couple phone calls, and one of them was to Paul Martinelli. And I said, dude, here's what's going on. Here's where I'm at. You know, my future's gone. I'm in tears, right? I'm breaking down. And he said, very profound. He said, don't put that in your future. And I'm like, what? He goes, it's not there. He says, it's not there unless you put it there. And I'm like, okay. And I said about the part of redesigning a vision, purpose, right? It's taking the steps. And that growth piece for a year and a half, I mean, I couldn't drive for almost 6 months, left side paralysis, and I'm left-handed. And so I had to learn how to, and you know, hello, I'm drinking out of my, right? But some interesting stuff happened during that time to really got me to understand the power of the mind and what we could do with it. And so now that's, when I share my story of having a stroke, people are like, I can't tell. Good, right on, right? I mean, because that's, for me, it's not a reality anymore. It's a past thing. Do I still have some stuff lingering? Absolutely. The other day, somebody asked me, "Are you 100%?" I said, "I'll never be 100%." I said, "You know, I'm Dane damaged, right? There's some damage up here. I've just learned how to rewire around it to where I can do what I want to do and make the impact I want to make. I had that clarity of vision to be able to move forward. So that's the obstacle. I just learned how to kind of bust through it and move forward."
And we're glad you're here. And I'm glad you put this in your future while you were laying there in that hospital bed. What I want to do is sometimes, and you and I and other people in this space, sometimes leapfrog over some of the stuff. We've sort of been trained, highlight the past, but project the future. I want to go backwards to that. Okay. The first time you had to figure out that you weren't going to be able to go into the bathroom by yourself. Or, okay, see? Or when you realized that going out to dinner would be a lot of shame and embarrassment because half of it would be on your shirt and your wife would have to reach across the table and cut your meat. Not to like take you back into that, but there has to be something that says, this too shall pass. How did you conquer that? Because as a stroke victim, it's not just once a week you have to go into therapy. You're like, from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to bed, you're constantly in it.
Well, yeah. So there was a point that I did not have that. I mean, I knew my life was over as I wanted it. Right? I mean, really. So step one was I reached out to somebody. I didn't stay in here. Now, most people that have reached out to the experts, the doctors, the nurses, the stroke channel, right? Because that we're trained to believe that those folks know what's going on. Thank God I had just went the weekend before. Nancy and I had been in a Paul Sheely workshop on the mind and the power of the mind and the other, you know, our personal genius. So I had those seeds that were there that, you know, so my first step was I knew I had to reach out to somebody. And of course, the first embarrassment was to share what happened, right? There was an embarrassment there.
And not to interrupt, but this is sort of where the micro learner in me comes in. Did you guys hear that he had to reach out to somebody and he had a variety of options? And he said, who is the person that's currently modeling or has taught what I believe right now I need to hear most? Not the stroke clinic, not the doctor, not the rehab nurse, not the, you know, whatever, overweight, high blood pressure anonymous group. Who is living a mindset that I, up until this moment, wanted to identify with, now I have to identify with? So step 2 is reaching out, but be very selective in who you reach out to, because sometimes we'll reach out to the person that will give us the most sympathy, but they'll not give us the most direction. and I'll just tell you guys,
you
now,
do not know how many times
sympathy, this is not the voice to call.
you will, and even today, right? Even today, when I start to, and I say something about it and I tell my story, the first thing I get the majority of is, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, I'm not. Because if that had not had happened that night, I was on a path of destruction. Right? And so I look back and say, thank you. Right? I mean, I'm honest to God. It was the 2x4 that had me start to address then what I needed to do, because I knew what I needed to do. I mean, 30 years as a firefighter, right? I knew about being in shape. I knew all those things. I just had put them on the side burner for a while, right? You know what I'm saying? And it didn't take me overnight to get there. It was years of neglecting my health and neglecting those things and, you know, focusing on the other thing I thought I needed to focus on. So that reaching out is, you've got to be selective. And it's the same way with getting a coach, right? It's the same way with branding. I was doing my own branding and thought I was doing a damn good job, right? But it's that part of, we've got to reach out beyond ourselves to those that know better in the direction in which we're heading. I knew the doctors and nurses were not the direction. God love them. I seriously, right? I mean, they were absolutely there when I needed them. The interesting part of the story I don't usually share, because you said therapy and you shared some stuff, was they had a whole plan for me, right? Where they were physical therapy the next day. They were starting the whole plan. The interesting part is I did not have insurance. And when they came in to, you know, start to line everything out, their first was like, oh, you don't have insurance. I'm like, no, I don't. They're like, well, let us get together a plan for you to do at home.
Here's a pamphlet if you can turn the pages.
Bingo. And I'll tell you what, that for me was a realization that I had to rely on me to get past. And so, you know, I did my own therapy. I did my own stuff. And I'll tell you where most of my therapy came from was up here. And I remember the interesting part was, you know, I had my coffee one day. I'm in the living room. My office is upstairs. And I started to really watch me doing what I was doing. Right? You know, that piece about stepping out, watching you doing what you're doing. And if I wanted to reach for my coffee, I couldn't. I couldn't reach it. But as I'm sitting there talking one time, you know, to Nancy and I are talking, and I just reached over and grabbed my coffee. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? To step back and evaluate what just happened was my other conscious mind knew how to grab the coffee. The damage of the stroke was not in the other conscious mind, it was in the conscious mind. That started me on the path with working with Dr. Sheely then to how do I rewire this piece of it to move forward. So my therapy didn't come from weights and all the stuff and, you know, my therapy came from rewiring the vision up here of where I wanted to be and then working backwards of the steps I needed to do to get there. So that was the piece of the therapy and the action steps I took to move forward. And that, you know, really was a year and a half of that. And I still have some, like I said, some lingering stuff because it's a physical damage. But I'm also learning that I can overcome that physical
2 points.
damage.
Michael LeBlanc is over here. And if you didn't catch Manifesting a Better Life with God author talk, as he said, when you change the consciousness, the conditions began to change. And And if people are like, oh, that's just Bob, you know, Bob is the magical one in the room. My daughter suffered a traumatic head injury prior to the adoption, but anyhow, which is very similar to a stroke. There are parts of her brain that are big black clouds of deadness. I mean, I know it's the reality, so who cares? When we got the report, it was like 50 pages long. She'll never walk. She'll never eat. She'll never talk. She'll never interact. She'll be lucky if she got like, and my ADD-ness took over after about the 15th never, and I just forgot it. She never received the list. Her conscious and in some ways her unconscious consciousness never got the list. So she was just like, okay, I want to walk. So I'm going to begin to figure out and manipulate and move my body in a way that looks like walking. I need to learn to talk, all the things that were on the do not list. She never received the orders. So she never deviated her plan of development. Now, as a coach, I'll say it took her longer. It takes her a different skill set. It requires her to maybe manage things differently to achieve the outcome she wants. And I remember when she was little, we never thought about teaching her how to use a bottle. I mean, I'm a really bad dad, just so y'all know, go ahead. I never thought she'd have to figure out how to use a bottle because I thought all babies figured out how to use a bottle on their own. The fact that she only had half a body to do it with, I should have taken some time. One day I look over and she bit the nipple. Well, first she scooped it with the good arm, pushed it against her chest, reached down, bit the nipple, flung her head back, propped it up with her hand, and she was good. I'm like, mission accomplished. When you look at your dreams, when you look at your life, when you look at your goals, people, are you looking at the list that says, poor Bob, he'll never walk, he'll never go out to dinner, he won't be able to hold coffee in his hand, he'll have a slur speech, like all of the poor me's list, the things that I won't be able to do because of my current condition affliction, the conditions external? Or are you saying, look, I can recreate anything in the universe? And you made an example the other day that, what was it, 6 Legos creates 9,000 different combinations?
Yeah, 91 million combinations or something like that.
You need 6 Legos to create 91 million possible outcomes. I mean, think of it. Now, if I had 6 ideas to grow my business and I just keep reworking them in different ways, somewhere between 1 and 91 million, I think I might strike gold.
Yep. Yeah, and first I want to, Melanie, absolutely. And trust me, I am not putting physical therapy down or anything else. I just didn't have the availability. You know, I saw Melanie and I love Melanie. She is just one of my favorite creative folks too, right?
She provides the physical evidence that the spiritual has been manifested. She is the connector of that. Because you think thoughts are things, she brings the thing into being in a way that and we believe in a community consciousness that when my daughter did that whole bottle thing, she convinced me that nothing was impossible. She had already convinced herself that she was going to be drinking. You had already convinced yourself, and your physical therapy and physical therapist provide the physical evidence so that you can keep moving.
Yep. Well, and I think you've got the point there with, you know, I am a firm believer in vision. I just am. I mean, mostly because that's what got me to where I'm at right now, was that, you know, when I called Dr. Paul Sheely and said, here's what's going on, tell me what, and like I said, I had just been to a weekend with him, right? And there we go, 91,000. Thanks, Diane. Hey, I'm a high I, you know, it's detailed,
really?
right?
I would have thought you was a D. Like maybe they would have given you a C on Valentine's Day.
99I, 70D. So, right. And the great part about that in the fire service was I was great with relationships, but when the yogurt hit the fan, we could get things done. No, my C's like a 7. Okay. I mean, I'm like, you know, but I'll tell you, he told me he does paraliminals. And folks, if you have not explored Dr. Paul Sheely's paraliminals, they are life transforming. And he said, here's what you do. You put in perfect health. You listen to it 3 times a day through your vision that you want to achieve a perfect health. Mine was being on stage, right? Mine was being that person. Now, whether that's on stage at a Rotary, right, or an on stage at the John Maxwell event, or on stage, it didn't matter. My was walking the stage, talking about my story and what I wanted to do. So that vision then becomes reality. Exactly, Melanie, right? Visualize what you want and expect it. I've got a coaching client right now. It's so funny because we're working she can't even create a vision because she's so stuck in the disappointment of the past. And it's like, the disappointment is a past emotion. Anxiety is a future emotion. But if we create the vision for today and live in that, neither emotion can take hold. Because we don't look backwards of the disappointment of what happened. We can't look forwards of the anxiety of not being resourced. And the funny part about it is emotion can only be felt right now. I can't feel emotion in the future. I can only feel it right now. So what's the emotion of that vision? Mine was excitement. Mine was, right? Thus, I put everything to work then to be able to step into the actions I needed, right? And Roddy's been trying to get me to do stage time. I finally put in my application for stage time for March, and
wouldn't it be sad,
you know, working on. You know what? Here's the deal.
Because it's already done.
Yeah, and thank you for
your stage time.
Well, exactly. See, that's the thing with me, people. You know, I was put in for culture awards, for multiple culture awards. And I didn't even make the top 20, which is awesome because there are greater people than I that need to be up there, right? I don't need that piece of it. I got rejected 2 years in a row for TEDx, 2 years in a row. And my second year was right after my stroke. My speech was about, you know, God will guide you by a feather, not a 2x4. And I thought I knocked it out of the park. And the first question the gal asked me, she goes, so what do you do with this speech about people that are agnostics or non-believers? I just went, the speech isn't for them. I'm straight, right? I'm right, you know? And needless to say, I didn't get picked to be on stage. Because what I figured out is I stand in who I am. And you're going to attract that, and you're going to repel the rest. I am not interested in working with everybody. I'm not interested, right? I want, like you said, I'm going to throw the net out, and I know I've got to throw the net out to be able to spear fish, but I know who I want to work with. And I know those folks that, you know, I know those folks that I want to work with, and I'm manifesting what that looks like, who I am, the authentic. I've got a client today I've got to have a talk with. They want to keep coming back and saying, well, can you modify this? Can you modify? And I've done a proposal of what they told me they want. I put together the objectives. I put together the measurables. And they're like, well, we don't know that you can do that in an hour and a half. And I'm like, my conversation today with them is going to be, have you ever sat in one of my programs? Because really the measurables,
offer them a money back guarantee. Say, sign it, send it to me.
Yeah, exactly.
If I don't achieve it in an hour and a half, or at least 80% of it, I'll give you back your entire money. Let's not negotiate.
Well, here's the measurables. You know, here's the measurables is raising the awareness of the people about, you know, their behavior style. That's the measurables. It's no, right? I mean, all I'm doing for these folks in an hour and a half is dropping seeds and raising their awareness. That's who I am. And the funny part about the money side of it is it's not much, right? I mean, it's a nonprofit. So when we sat down and talked about it, you know, they were like, yeah. I said, how much do you have? I mean, just tell me your budget, right? Tell me. And they told me, I went, deal, let's do it. Because I know if I can make an impact with these folks, they work in the education space and daycares and those kind of things. And we know where limiting beliefs are started, right? We know that those kids that they're going to be working with are impacted by the beliefs and the actions of those caregivers. If I can make that difference in them, just
that hour and a half,
just that hour and a half, if I can realize that the life they're speaking into these folks, into these kids, of what it looks like and the impact it's going to make in them, that's worth it. So today I'll say, you know what? Tell me what you want me to say, because I'm going to do the same. I'm going to do the same presentation, right? I am not changing my presentation at all. So it's really having me look at some different things in the way, but it's also having me look at looking at the beliefs of other people of that, right? It's all about beliefs, right? That's all this
So
is
a
about.
couple things I want to like.
And it's Diane. Let me jump in here real quick. It's Paul Scheele, Scheele, Diane, and Ellie. You can go to Learning Strategies Corporation and find out about Paul Scheele. He is amazing, Ellie, just amazing. One of my saviors.
So I want to roll back because there's a couple things you bounced across, and we talked about it yesterday.
I'm good at that, by the way. That's my high eye bouncing across.
And just so you guys know, as a host, having eyes, it's like trying to grab a greased pig in a snowstorm blindfolded, like a birdcage edition of
especially without a script. You didn't give me a script, Eric, so I don't know.
Because the best comes from within. But I want you guys to understand, this week we talked now twice, maybe 3 times, that idea of want versus done has come up. If you're in the Think and Grow Rich, it's like probably 50 times in the Think and Grow Rich. Want versus done. That idea that I didn't have all of this tools, plans, things in place, but I already accepted it as doneness. And then as sometimes we have to learn is don't become attached to the thing as much as being attached to the feeling. So often, and this was a lesson, I think, a couple days ago in the Think and Grow Rich, and we talked about it earlier in the month about our New Year's resolution. We get so focused on this is the way it's going to go that we close ourselves out to the way that this might go. And so don't become attached to the plan, but stay focused on the goal. Yesterday, we talked about having to create that electromagnetic field in the sense that we can't just intellectualize the outcome that we desire. We have to feel it. And when Bob talked about, I saw myself speaking, and the joy and the happiness and the completeness and the perfect swing kind of feeling was connected to it. So if it doesn't appear at IMC, I'm not worried because I've already felt that moment. I just haven't figured out the place where it's going to manifest. And so if that's not it, it doesn't matter because I already know it exists because I've already felt it occurring. I'm just wandering my way forward strategically, sometimes less strategically, towards that feeling and towards that vision. So, and I know Melanie, I love you, Melanie girl, but sometimes those vision boards that we create have either no feeling or they're all feeling without any reality. So it's bringing those two things in a line. And then
it is. Well, and Eric, you talked about, and I want to jump in here real quick because I think you said an important thing is you have to have the outcome, right? So in the fire service, when I worked in the fire service, we did a thing called management by objective, right? We had to have an objective. So we have to have an outcome, but I remember, again, it takes me a while to get some of this stuff, right? Paul Martinelli talking about detach from the outcome, like don't get attached to the outcome, but get attached to the process. Because as I start moving towards the outcome, I may find it may go right hand. But if I'm so attached to just that, and we saw that in the fire service was when we started writing tactics for our operations folks, they got attached to how to do it. And you know what? In that world, when that happens, people die because they failed to see that the situation conditions had changed, but they were so attached to the plan, they had the tactics, this is what we're supposed to do, that they forgot the objective was to come home safe, right? That's the ultimate objective.
And I do the same when I work with companies and teams and we start to write out policies and procedures, the KPIs and all of that internal language. I'm like, that's all good and fine. Got it. Understand it. Know why it has to be done from a strategic business, cover our butt, whatever thing is. But let's put at the very bottom, like even if we only use a sentence, the desire or the why we're doing this. Like, why are we doing this? Because if you hand me the policy and procedure, the KPI, whatever you want to call it, and I just go from top to bottom, and I don't have a moment where I understand why I'm doing it, I could totally sink the ship. I could totally blow up what we are trying to create.
Absolutely.
Because and you know, former IT, I'd get on the phone and people would, like, I still get this now that in our world of automation, they'll start with the top question. And I'm like, you didn't even listen. I've already answered the top 22 questions for you with my description of the problem. Let's start at number 23. But because you're so programmed that you have to follow this plan, you have to follow this methodology, you're going to go all the way back to question number 1. So yes, the outcome and just sort of definition, when Bob says don't become attached to the outcome, he's not saying don't become attached to the goal, the vision, the purpose, the passion. Just let go of your need to always do it the same way it says it should have been done.
The right way.
Right? I'm good at not the right way.
Right. Well, yeah, right. That's that low C in me. What's the right way is the way I do it. Right. I mean, that's the right yeah. And again, working with companies and organizations, we've seen a shift away from this mission statement, right? And now it's vision and really purpose. The mission, and that's why I'm so glad to see some of the organizations I work with now are open to at least that conversation. They've had a mission statement and it's up on the wall, but yet they're still not doing it.
Diane probably, right? Because she's
and
in and out of corporations so much. It's great when you tap like the person that's maybe not at the front of the office kind of speech, and like, what's the company's mission statement? And they reach down and grab their name badge and have to read it. It's like, if you have to do that,
or it's 17 paragraphs long, right? I mean, it's, you know, it's well, and so for me, right, and I carry this card with me all the time in my book with me, right, and it's my purpose, and I carry it so that I remind myself, because this is not who I believe or have believed I am, right? So it's the piece of that. It's the same thing. I carry my values on a card. And it's because I can show people, but also I've got to pull it out sometimes to remind myself. Because Eric, you're not there to remind me all the time, right? You know, and so it's like through my authentic passion and encouragement, I create and raise the awareness of those in the world to visualize and achieve their next level of greatness. That's my purpose. Now, can I do that as a coach? Yes. Can I do that as a speaker? Yes. Can I do that to the checker behind the counter at the grocery store? Yes. Right? And it could be anything more than you are doing an amazing job today. So that piece of that is, how do we figure out the why? And I saw Diane, right? The why. You've got to understand the why you're doing it, because sometimes the objective does not even match the why. And that why gets you the availability then to run between the barriers to get done what you want to do. And that's,
and on the why,
you know, it all comes down to the purpose.
If you guys go over to the Success Life U, as in the letter U.com, there's actually a little mini thing that I put together. It's a free thing to figuring out your why. I said the ebook would be finished today. It's like the high C in me is taking over. I can't get the pictures. So it may be done today, it may not, but all of the other coursework on figuring out your why is. And another thing that really has slipped into more and more, your purpose may shift a little. You may start to see it this week, and then next week as you experience it and wear it and start to move through it, you might be like, I need to change a word. I need to change a tone. That's normal. Don't think you have to have a Mother Teresa, Pope John Paul II level why right now to move into beingness.
This is 7 years. This is 7 years. I mean, this is 7 years of, my first one was right.
So I did mine very similar, and I wrote it out, and I read it every morning and every night. And this was like 4 years ago. And I would scratch out a word because the word didn't, it was like, is that really what I meant? Like, it was the right word if I wanted to pass the English exam, but was that the right word for me? And I don't know. I kept all the redacted versions, so to speak. just to see how many times it changed. And in the last month, I've been working with somebody, for me personally as a coach, and I was like, that doesn't feel the same anymore. It doesn't like me the way it used to. Does that mean I was wrong? No, that means that just like my kids, when they were learning to ride their bike and they had the training wheels, they thought they were riding their bike. They were like, look at me, I'm riding a bike. They've graduated, they've moved on, they've added new tools and skills. Their awareness of what riding a bike can be is completely different. So just like,
yeah,
I was going to say,
go
just
ahead.
like from, and that's why I wanted to go back, because your awareness of the power of the mind, the power of your thoughts, the power of your conscious ability is not at the same place it was the day you got let out of the hospital with your pamphlet.
Oh my God. It's not the same today as it was yesterday. You know, while I was waiting on this, I was going back into the Think and Grow Rich, which I've done. I can't tell you how many times, right? How many versions? What are we on? Version 4 or something like that, right? So as I was sitting here waiting for you, I was going back and kind of, you know, and even with that, I'm taking notes and going, wow, right? And so when I work our workshop on designing your purpose, designing your why, designing that is, I see so many people, they're so afraid. Just write something down. Just write. And then, like you said, put it on for a while and wear it. If it doesn't work, guess what? Crumple it up, throw it away, and start over. It's and working with the high C's, working with those behavior styles, because they want to do what? They want to do it right. And that's where, for high C's, I find to have a great coach to be able to work them through a process to do it, versus an I's going to write something down and tomorrow they're going to write something different, right? I mean, you know, but it's very much about, and Diane asked, is your purpose your why? No, for me, no. Why I do this is, the why I do this is because I now believe, and I say that, I now believe I was created to make a difference. I now believe that. I didn't believe that for many years. For many years, I had no idea what the hell I was doing on this earth. And I'll tell you, you know, long explanation goes back to when I was 6 years old, and my stepfather told me I would never amount to anything, and I'd never, you know, I mean, the talk that was put into my head back then, my why is because I was created to raise the awareness of those of their greatness. That's my why. So Diane, I hope that helps.
What I want to say about the why, okay, this is where I always get kicked out of coaching club. I should almost cover up my little thing here. It doesn't matter what you call the thing. Call it your vision, call it your mission, call it your purpose, call it your why, call it your big green tomato that's sitting on the kitchen table. I don't care what you call it. Let's not get lost in this, this Pinterest mentality that it's got to fit on a certain form board. What's waking you up in the world? When you wake up, what is the center belief that you hold? And that often to me is what I see as the why. Like, what is my belief? Like, if I could strip away all the pieces, what is it? I believe I'm an awesome person as created by God. How am I going to show that in a world that I can see it? That becomes my purpose. Like, I want to show the world that I believe this. And one of the ways I can do it is by saying you're a great checkout person or adding value. Like, let's not get lost in, oh, I don't have a purpose, so therefore I can't be a great whatever. I don't have a mission statement. I don't have a vision. You know, the guy that invented the wheel just wanted to get from one place to another easier. And so I don't mean to like discredit the value of having the card and all of that. I just want you guys to take the labels off what we're calling it, because somebody will say, well, is my why my purpose? I don't know. What does it feel like to you? Well, it feels like why I wake up every morning. Then let's call it that. Why I wake up every morning is this. So Diane, I understand.
You can call it your kickstart, whatever you call it.
I think we get so caught up in this Rubik's Cube mentality of trying to get all the sides to match up between vision and purpose and passion and mission and all of that, when it's really more of an exercise of us avoiding moving into action. Well, I don't know my why. I don't know my purpose. I don't know my vision. I don't know my goal. So until I get all of these things lined up, I don't have to do anything, become anything, step into my greatness. So I know I just lost 5 coaching credentials. I'm back in the back of the room. Nobody's going to invite me in. But anyhow, I had to segue there because as a coach, I often get people that come to me in frustration because they watch something like us and said, I don't know my purpose. I can't begin to live fully for my children. I'm like, really? Because I really feel bad for your kids. If it took me.
Well, and you know, the process I use there is let's start living and figure out how your purpose shows
Live
up.
fully engaged, live intentionally, fully engaged, and
Let's
that's called
live
life.
intentionally and then let's figure it out the why, right? And that's for me, that's how I did that, right? Was, you know, I looked at it and I kept coming back to who am I? I'm an encourager. Anybody that knows me, or at least I hope so, knows that I encourage people. That's what I do, right? I encourage them to be on stage. I encourage them to be the best. I encourage them, right? And I'm passionate about it. I am, and not passionate like a love passion, but I'm passionate about you being your best. Um, and then the piece of it that really struck me when I started to put this together was the authentic piece, because I really realized I wasn't being authentic. I mean, authentic, like, you know, let's tear it down and be authentic. Like, let's now, sometimes I'm a little bit too much authentic for some people, right? And I'm learning how to temper that, right?
I need to learn that skill. Are you
But the other side
available?
of it is maybe no, because I am not. I am right. Is the piece about that for me is learning how to respond versus react. Right. You know what
That
I'm
was
saying?
Scott
Is
Beeman a couple
that's the
days
piece
ago,
of
folks.
okay. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's that piece of it though that for me, if I'm being that, no matter what I'm doing, the rest will happen. The rest will happen.
And I think that's the big takeaway that I guess because I know your heart and I know what your mission is you just want people for one moment, one brief flash of a moment, to be able to believe that what's happening up here can change everything that's happening around them. And you use your story of, you know, being in the stroke and having to lose weight and learning to manage food. And then you've used other experiences of like, look, over time, I've learned my ability to really like I can see it physically manifested. And so to say you're fortunate for the stroke, the fact that you had a physical evidence in such a tactile way was required for you to be able to teach it in such a high level.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's it. It had to happen. I mean, it did. I would not have been knocked off center probably any other way to to make the changes. And I want to make a little dial change correction here, right? Little Liz, is I didn't lose the weight. I released the weight because I'll tell you what I figured out is when I lose something, I want to find it, and I have no desire to go back and find that 65
So
pounds I've
yeah,
lost. Right? I'm
so
really
that's the story.
so.
So our buddy Les Paul often, or Les Paul. I just blended like 3 thought leaders into one. Les Brown talks about that, and what I say is I gift it to somebody else, and somebody's like, "What? What you saying? You gifted me your extra pounds?" I'm like, no, there are literally people on the planet right now that would love to get a little extra weight because they're going through chemo, they're going through, you know, a traumatic illness.
Yeah.
That weight gain is one of the needs that they have. And so I'm gifting you all the weight that you want from this big old saggy body of mine. And if you need more, you just send me a note and I'll gift you more of it. But in the spirit of gifting it, it also allows me to feel gratitude that I have the ability to impact the universe. So I kind of like releasing and gifting. True. So as we pull it into the doghouse or the fire station, there we go. So we back into the fire station. Because as a firefighter, you always got to back in. What is the thing that you're currently like, man, how have I missed this for the last 6 years, 8 years? How is it like this has been like sitting on my dining room table and I've walked past it so often? What is your new awareness about you?
Wow. That's a great question.
And I didn't even jot it down beforehand.
That's a great question. Here, I think for me is the new awareness throughout building our business. What we've done is we've went out and found the tools that we wanted and needed and bought licensed products that we could utilize, modify like that, right? And what I've realized the awareness is that's come from is my belief is I'm not a like I can't create stuff. Like you're doing an ebook. I'm going, right? I can't even this mind can't even imagine me because people have told me you need to write a book. I'm like, I just don't, right? Is now the awareness of here we're changing some things in the John Maxwell team. I'm on the faculty now. And part of that is starting to write content for the business building lane. That's where I'm going to be a faculty member in. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, and I said yes, right? I mean, it's one of those things I said yes and then start to think, oh no, I got to, and I did that realizing that I need to start creating. I mean, there's stuff I now have that people want to hear. I've just got to create. So that new awareness is in the truth, that ability, that capacity, that of being a creative being, coming up with my own content. And I've started to do that and started to share that and getting some pretty good reviews on it, which is pretty cool. So
I sort of want to refocus it a minute. So the awareness is I've always been creative. I just haven't had a physical format recognized by others.
Yep. I've stopped myself from even putting it in a physical format.
So my fear of not being able to produce it correctly put a lid on my creative expression.
Not so much of producing it correctly is who in the world would want to hear it.
So my fear of not having value put a lid on my creativity.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of that, I'll tell you, and we've, my fire stories, my fire life, 30 years, I don't use any of those stories. I'm thinking, who would want to hear that? Right. And working with a coach. Yes, I have a coach. Working with a coach. She's made me realize that there's some amazing stories there that people would love to hear. It's an engagement piece. It's that kind of, but then how do you blend where we're going? And so it's not the gore and it's all the stuff, right, but it's what's the principles I can take away from those 30 years to be able to bring those stories in. That's the piece I'm now starting to create and grab and look at and stuff. And even, the parts of my past, my family that I've went through that's part of my growth process, I haven't shared. I haven't shared a lot of that because I'm thinking, who in the hell wants to hear that story, right? But it is who I am. It's what's made me who I am, and it's the connection piece. So it's now starting to grab all that together. Hey, thanks, Greg.
You guys to hear, you guys, whatever we're using the official word.
You guys, I know.
In trouble for that Midwestern,
y'all, all y'all.
I could buy Bob's story. He would probably write it down. I'd send him a check for $12,000. He'd send me back the story, and I would stand on stage, and it wouldn't connect. You have listened now for well over an hour to Bob, and everything that he's taught us started with an awareness of his feet falling out from under him, so to speak. None of that, all of the things, all of the lesson, all of the accessories he hung on it as tools. He only needed a place to anchor it, and that was his personal story. And we can't buy other people's personal stories. We can't buy other people's experience and then try and hang the accessories on it and expect it to look right. If you're sitting there saying, I can't grow a business, build a business, write a book, change a life, impact kids, whatever, because I don't have 200 over 168.
Yeah, 268 over 162.
Yeah, I don't pay attention to they always do that. Your blood pressure today is this. I'm like, whatever. Because I don't.
And I'm sure those numbers aren't correct either, but they're in that range. They're right in there. It was freaking high.
I was like, go like this. You don't need to have that experience. Somewhere, somehow, something is the core and the center belief, or the center point to your story, and then talk about where it impacted, how it shifted you, where you can connect. See, I'm pulling that that Kittridge Connect back into it. How you can connect that story to a lesson that others can do the journey with you and take what they need. Because there's a ton of gold in here, you guys. There's a ton of gold that you need to go back and mine today 3 or 4 times. And I'm sorry, Bob, it's not necessarily your story. It's everything that you learned from that experience that the gold is in there for us to dig up and take.
Well, and if you think about it, I think that's the difference between how we look at failure, right? I know folks that have went through a lot of the same I've went through, and they're now not invalids, but you know what I'm saying? It has totally derailed them in life, and they're so stuck in that story that they can't get over them getting over it, right? I mean, and so it's that piece of it, you know, excuse my language here, but doo-doo happens, right? I mean, it's life. It's going to happen. It's how do you look at it? How do you address it that makes the difference in moving forward?
Amen. And
it's not, you can't not have it happen.
The idea of having the right people in alignment. So again, the story of my daughter, her brother, who was 15 months older, didn't get the list either. And one of my all-time greatest favorite videos is she's standing on the back porch, literally beating him down with a lightsaber, a plastic sword. And he's there laughing and trying to fight her back. And I'm like, he never bought into the story that you're never going to walk, you're never going to talk, you're never going to eat, you're never going to interact. And so he treated her based on the expectations that he had. People around us, don't let people buy. If you hear somebody going, I understand, it's okay, Eric, you've had a rough day, you can stop now. Turn to them and say, thank you, I'm so glad we had this time together, bye-bye. Because Bob, as he said, the first thing he did was he bought into, he called somebody that wouldn't buy into his limiting belief, his mindset that was like, yeah, sorry to hear that. Are you safe and comfortable? Great. Okay, where are we going? And you guys, it's just, what is today? January, I don't even keep track. 26th?
It's today, 25th.
I know half of the people probably have already stalled on their goals, dropped them, remodified them, or asked for a timeout from them.
What's that happen? January 12th, I think 80% of the people have already moved past their New Year's resolution.
And the reason that happens, and you and I both know this, is because they never connected to it from here. And as you said, when you began to manifest the new life that you wanted, manifest my word this year, you guys, I need to get like 10 t-shirts that say that. When you began to manifest who you wanted to become, you didn't simply say, I need to do this so I can qualify for health insurance. You said that because I need to do this to finish what I believe is my purpose, my vision, my mission, my why.
Yep.
And we're so lucky that you bought in fully, because and I'm sure your wife feels the same way, that she's kind of glad that you bought in 100%.
Well, it's that piece about you have to know your own value. Yeah, first and foremost, before anything else, you have to know and understand that you have value and what it is. And that value is not a money, it's not a dollar figure, right? That's not the value. I think about, and it seems interesting over the last few weeks, I've started to receive messages from people, and not because of these, just out of the blue, thanking me for being there one day, or thanking me, right? I mean, those kind of things. And I'm thinking, one, some don't even remember that, right? Sometimes I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. But what I'm starting to realize, it's become so natural for me to be and operate from my purpose, right? To raise the awareness of those to their greatness in the world, right? To be authentic, to be passionate, to be an encourager. I'm not having to look at the card every day to say, oh, let's see, how am I going to act today? I've done it enough times. It's now natural for me to do it. And guess what? The results are showing up in the world, right? The results are showing up in the world.
Melanie Massey, I think she's still in the room. I remember because my daughter in special ed, I had to go into this environment, and I don't do well with people with special needs. I know she lives in my house. Isn't that God's humor? And I, you know, I just, it's awkward for me. It's just awkward because, yeah, it's a thing. And she was like, you get to decide who you want to be before you show up. And you set the energy of the room. And I was like, oh, so fine, Melanie. I'll set the energy of the room before I arrive. You know, like I only bought into it about 60%. But because I bought into it, even that 60 or 70%, that first step into working in the Special Olympics field and working with kids with high disabilities and all of that, I really had a ball. And then the second time I had about a 70% buy-in and an 80% buy-in and a 90% buy-in. And now I understand that everything I walk into, I have to buy into at a new level and a new awareness. So having the pink card, as Bob does, isn't about needing to be reminded, but when that new environment, new situation, new circumstance occurs, he's like, okay, wait a minute. I haven't rehearsed this. I haven't done this before. Let me get my pink card. Let me get my goal sheet. Let me get my vision and my core value statements. Let me make sure I set that correctly. Good. I'm good to go. So yeah, you guys write it down. Don't carry it on your iPad as your screensaver. Don't do that. Just don't do that. It should be like in the visor of your car.
Well, and here's the other side of that. The other side of that, Eric, right, is it also allows me to know when to say no. That's my word this year is focus. And what this now allows me to do, because now, and as everybody, you start being successful, everybody's going to come to you with, hey, I've got this deal and I've got this. Man, I'd like to collaborate with you. It has now allowed me to, because I love people. I love that kind of, now it's this purpose has now allowed me when to say yes, but has also allowed me when to say no or not yet, right? And that's, as a coach, as a piece moving forward, and this year in focus is my word. And for pretty funny, end of the year, I was doing my reflection and doing my stuff and what is my word? And I'm, you know, and I kept going, you know, God, if I could just focus on this to get my word. And, you know, and I don't know why. And all of a sudden I'm like, God, okay, I got it. The word is focus, right? And now I can say, you know, and last night, guy come up to me, hey, here's what I'd like to do. I'm like, tell me more. And I could right away say, you know what? Doesn't match this. I got you. Sounds like a great project. I mean, let me know how I can support you. But for me to be involved, it's not inside my purpose to be able to do that. And the more you leak that, the more you water it down, the more you let that go out, the less impact you're going to have.
Shark Tank is like my binge watch show whenever I sit down. And I love it when somebody like Mark Cuban goes, phenomenal idea, great product, but I don't know anything about women's bras, so I'm sorry, I'm out. It's not like I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have the resources, you've got a bad idea. He's just like, I don't know where I can add value, and it's not in alignment with my portfolio, I'm out. So if Mark Cuban can say it, then I can, you know, same idea. Not everything is right for your portfolio. And don't worry, if the universe created it, they'll find the person that it's right for. So don't go into this whole, but if I don't say yes, nobody will. Really, because your ego is way in the middle of it anyhow at that point. Well, I am so glad you joined me for Fun Friend Friday. Is this the final Friday of the month? It is, isn't it?
Is it? I think it is. I don't know. I just know it's the 25th.
Somebody else will figure it out. Us eyes don't even have time for calendars. Give everybody your website or a connections point for you if they can. And by the way, when you get time, you'll see that everybody is loving you, hearting on you, commenting.
I'm watching the deal. Yeah, I'm watching.
You've done a phenomenal job. I want to thank you for being a guest on Fun Friend Friday. And for just pouring in and for deciding to stick around for a couple more decades.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you asking. When you sent me the note, I'm like, dude, right? And, you know, it was one of those things when I said yes. And then actually one of my local tribe, one of my friends sent me a deal and said, is this 6 a.m. our time? And I'm like, yeah. And then I went, It's 6 a.m. our time.
That's okay. I've had our Australian people are going to have to get up like at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I've got somebody coming up next month that's clear in Malaysia, so that'll be interesting.
Well, and Wendy Burns, great friend, and I'll do something and she'll step in and go, Bob, so Success Roadmap, she covers sometimes Success Roadmap calls, and I'll put out there, hey, we need coverage for this Saturday, that kind of thing. And she'll do it. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, hang on, Wendy, what time is it there? Oh, it's 1 a.m. I'm like, no, right? We're not.
She's an upcoming Fun Friend Friday, I think in 3 weeks. If you don't know who's coming up.
Oh, I've got to watch that. I got to watch that.
If you want to find out who's coming up on Author Talk and Fun Friend Friday, ericgreed.com/Success Life Live has the schedule as well.
Right on. Very cool. Well, Eric, I appreciate it. And hey, I'm loving this, dude. I'm loving that kind of thing, and I like the hair. I mean, how far you. Right?
Now my hands are going to be tacky for the rest. No, this started because just as a mini coaching lesson. So because we are on Christmas holiday, we were away because historically every morning I get up, I get the fresh shave, I get the fresh collar, I get ready for work, even if I'm working from home. Mindset equals success. Yep. And so because I wasn't going to be doing that, I said, oh, I need something to like clue me into that this is different than normal. So I stopped shaving because I said, while I'm on holiday, I'll break the pattern, break the habit to create new awareness, to focus on something different. And so that's how this started. And now it's annoying because I'm getting like, you should have done that years ago.
Well, I would do that, but as you can tell from this, when I do it here, this is gray. I don't have gray up here. This is where my gray is. And so, years ago, I had a pretty good, right? And I had sent a video into Paul Martinelli to kind of look at, and that was back before Roddy was doing some. And he gave me some feedback on stuff. And then his last one, he goes, either color it or shave it. And Nancy had never seen me without at least a mustache. I mean, and so I did. I shaved it, right? Paul Martin, I'm not going to color it. I'm going to shave it. I came down that morning, and she's like, who are you, right? So left that off for a couple years, but now I've started to grow this back, and I like it again, and keeping it trimmed and the trim piece. But I'm not going all the way because it does. That's the gray piece is where it shows up for me. So you look good in it, brother.
I appreciate it. We'll see what happens. I feel uncomfortable, but it's not about me, I guess, in my house. So again, how can they connect with you? I apologize. We segued into beard.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I know, right? There we go. So the website is www.kittridgeconnection.com. It's connection, not connections. kittridgeconnection.com. You can send me an email, bob@kittridgeconnection.com. And then I also do an Ignite Your Life kind of history of your future complimentary call if anybody's interested in that. Love to take you on that process. Caveat on the website, we're having some trouble with it today, so you may see some wonky stuff with the Diane Squirrel. You're right. So don't judge me on my website right now.
Well,
so look forward to connecting with folks.
And you guys, and I know we dropped a lot of wisdom, a lot of words, a lot of craziness. Take a moment. This will go up onto the YouTube channel. I hate that word. The YouTube channel later today. If you want to go back and replay. I know it's easier to find it over there under Eric. Just Google Eric G. Reed and it should show up under the Fun Friend Friday playlist, so that you can take notes. There's a lot. I often take these Fun Friend Fridays and I'll just play them in my car for a couple days in a row and pull out the things that are of value to me and get them in my notebook so that I have a reflecting point, a jumping point, a teaching point for the future. So do it, you guys. This is not just, we do it on Friday so you can have Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, you're like me, multiple books. So that you can have Saturday and Sunday to listen into. And then I show back up here Monday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern to host another Success Life Live. So, Bob, thank you so much for being my guest this morning. Thank you for changing your consciousness so the conditions would create for us to be able to share time together today. Give Nancy a hug. I know she's going to be like waking up in a couple hours.
Yeah, it was. I was up at about 4:30 this morning because it's, I was afraid of oversleeping. I had a dream that I overslept. So,
Well, you didn't, and we're glad you didn't. Wait a minute. See, Melanie?
Well, you're very welcome. This has been an honor. It's been awesome.
So you've impacted. So Marie, let's just say that you echoed out to somebody that she's been begging to hear a message.
I'm glad, Marie. That's awesome.
Yeah. Your footprint got bigger than you expected. That's a great thing. So you impacted somebody today without even needing to use the pink card. Thank you guys so much for jumping in and joining me today on Success Life Live.
Thank you.
It's been my privilege to be your host today. Go out, make today awesome and a success. You are worthy and it is yours. Just step into it. Bye-bye, Bob. Thanks again.
Thanks. Take care.